Doctor Strange is directed by Scott Derrickson and stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, a renowned doctor who is very good at his practice. However, he lets his ego get in his way of his work, and he tends to be very overconfident, and that irks many people around him. And one day in a car accident, he loses the ability to perform operations. He loses what is so integral to him and makes him what he is. And when there seems to be no cure at hand and there's no way for him to ever get back to the way he was, he travels to Kathmandu, where he meets the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, who shows him a way of accessing multiple universes and to basically be a sorcerer. I was really excited for this movie. Marvel has been doing a very good job with their movies recently. Civil War was a great film. I really enjoyed that movie. And now that we're into phase 3, I really wanted to see where they were going with the structure of films. And Doctor Strange is not exactly the most well-known character or the most well-liked character for a lot of people, so seeing him come to life on the screen was a little irksome, considering the fact that a lot of people are not very familiar with the character. And I can honestly say I had a very good time with Doctor Strange. It was a great film. I really enjoyed it. I do have some problems with it. It's not a perfect movie, and it's not as good as Civil War, for instance, but it's definitely a great film, and I had a very good time with it, and there's a lot of positives to reckon in this film. One of the best parts of this movie for me definitely has to be Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. He does a great job. He brings the character to life brilliantly. He understands the character. You understand his confusion, you understand his anger, you understand his feelings, and there are moments where you really connect with him and you feel what the character is going through. And when he's discovering certain things, when he's learning to do some stuff, you're enthralled by it and you understand where he's coming from and you root for his character in moments like that, and that makes him extremely likable. Chiwetel Ejiofor is very good in this movie as well. Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, a very controversial casting. She does a very good job. You could have done with an Asian actress, honestly, and avoided all the controversy, but she does do a very good job. But it would have been nice to see the certain ethnicity as that character. Benedict Wong is very good in this movie. He also has some entertaining moments. Mads Mikkelsen as Caecilius, the villain of this film. He does a very good job as well. I do have one problem with him though, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But as a whole, the acting is very good. Rachel McAdams also does a really good job. Casting-wise, the film is great. The best part of this movie easily is the visual effects. These are Marvel's best effects to date. In fact, these are grade A effects. Some of the visual effects in this movie, especially one scene in particular, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there's a certain scene which is easily one of the best visual effects scenes I've ever seen, actually. They really outdone themselves with the visual effects this time, and I really have to give them props for that, because visually this movie seems to know exactly what it wants to be, and it does a brilliant job of making sure that you experience the world that these characters are in. The soundtrack by Michael Giacchino is also very good. It's a very catchy and a very unique soundtrack for the Marvel Universe, and that's something which I'm going to say a lot, because it's a very unique Marvel movie. There's a lot of things they do here which I've not seen a lot of Marvel movies do. There's some things where I feel like they were a bit too similar, but as a whole, I thought there was a lot more different flavors in this movie compared to other Marvel outings, and that has to be praised for. Another thing I really liked is the writing of this film, the way they've written this character in. He, again, is a character who's not very well known, and the fact that they've brought him to life in this way and made him connect-worthy and have made him a very enthralling character makes Doctor Strange a very good movie. They've managed to create a character here who you relate to and you like as much as you like other characters, and by the end of the movie, you really enjoy his character, and a lot of that has to do with the great writing which was being done. I do have some problems with the movie though. First of all, I think that there was a lot of exposition. There was a lot of scenes where characters are just explaining things like this is this and this is happens when that happens and because of that, that happens and thus we end up here. There was a lot of those scenes in this film which I think were a little off-putting. I feel like if they toned that down a little bit, it would have been much better. There were certain times where I was like, you could figure that out on your own. You don't need an exposition scene to tell you that. Another thing is that I thought the first half hour was not as strong as the rest of the film. There were points where I thought that they were kind of meandering, where the plot felt a little too formulaic for me, and it wasn't as interesting as the storyline that came in later. And even though the storyline is something similar, I felt like the first 30 minutes were not as good, and they felt a little off, and it took me a little while to get into the movie in a proper manner. And finally, my problem with Caecilius is that while I like the character, and I think Mads Mikkelsen has done a very good job, is that I feel like he didn't have as much to do in this film, and that's something which has been the case for a lot of Marvel villains, is that I feel like they could do a lot more, and I feel like they should be written in more detailed ways. However, when I've watched this film, I feel like he could have done a lot more than some of the stuff he did. I would have liked to see a lot more from his character, especially since he was quite interesting. But as a whole, like I said, despite some of these problems, I really enjoyed this movie. There's a lot to like here, there's a lot to enjoy. It's not one of Marvel's stronger films, but it's definitely a great fun time, and I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend watching this movie. I don't know if you should compare it to other Marvel movies though. That's something I'm gonna see a lot of people are going to do, where they're just gonna be like, yeah, but is it as good as that movie? Or is it as good as that movie? I guess if you wanted to compare it, then you could say it's weaker than some films, and I feel like after Civil War, I don't think this was the strongest film, but I definitely enjoyed it as a standalone movie, and I definitely enjoyed it as its own film, and I highly recommend it nonetheless. I'm gonna give Doctor Strange an 8.5 out of 10. Guys, what did you think of Doctor Strange? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, let me know. I'll have a spoiler review up very soon as well. You guys are the best. Thank you so much as always for watching, and if you like this, you can please subscribe, and I will see you guys later.